rise with the sun over the equator's spine, where an ancient landscape of fire and stone greets the dawn. Here, cradled by the towering crests of the Andes and perched at 2,150 meters above sea level, lies Quito, the highest constitutional capital on Earth, a city that has lived at the crossroads of worlds for millennia. From this vantage, the city's historic heart unfolds like a living manuscript. A labyrinth of colonial streets, cut deep into volcanic soil, leads visitors through corridors of time where every weathered cobblestone murmurs stories of Spanish conquistadors, indigenous elders, and empires long past. Quito's Centro Histórico, designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1978 for its extraordinary preservation, stands as one of the most complete and authentic colonial urban fabrics in the Americas. Within this vast tapestry, monasteries like San Francisco and Santo Domingo, and the awe-inspiring church and college of La Compañía de Jesús showcase the remarkable Escuela Quiteña, a unique fusion of European Baroque and indigenous artistic traditions that echoes with spiritual grandeur. But this is more than architecture and art. Beneath the grandeur of gilded altars and shadowed plazas lie deeper layers of cultural memory. Long before the Spanish arrived, the fertile valleys and steep hillsides around Quito were shaped by ancient societies, the Quito people, whose legacy endured through successive ages. By the 15th century, the Inca Empire extended its reach into these highlands, creating a vibrant settlement that later became the foundation for the city we know today. In the bustling markets that thread through the city's veins, the spirit of those ancestors still thrives. Stalls overflow with hand-woven textiles, tagua nut jewelry, carved wood, and pottery, each piece a testament to the skills and sacred knowledge passed down through generations of Quechua artisans, living heirs to pre-Columbian traditions. Here, the pulse of ancient craft beats against the rhythm of modern life, a sensory symphony of color, texture, and sound. Walk La Ronda, one of Quito's oldest streets, and you'll feel this heritage in every lantern-lit corner. Once the haunt of poets and painters, today it hosts workshops, galleries, and cafes where master artisans still demonstrate the age-old techniques of their forebears. Beyond the historic core, Quito's dramatic geography frames rituals that have spanned centuries. The city hugs the eastern flanks of the volcanic Pichincha, while nearby hills like El Panetillo offer sweeping views and deep cosmological roots, once sites of indigenous worship long before the Virgin of Quito statue crowned their summits. Here, during the solstice, the Andes themselves participate in ancient rites. Shamans and elders gather where the mist clings to volcanic rock, invoking fire and fog in ceremonies that bridge millennia, honoring the sun that brought life and the earth that cradles souls. This is a sacred convergence where Inti Raymi, the sun festival that echoes through time, blends with Catholic observances, revealing how the sacred and secular interweave across Quito's cultural tapestry. To ascend through Quito is to journey through epochs, from the ritually aligned equatorial landscapes of ancient astronomers to plazas where colonial bells toll, from markets of woven dreams to the quiet hush within Baroque sanctuaries. It is here that history does not merely reside in books. It breathes, dances, and calls to every traveler with a sense of wonder. This is Quito, Ecuador's Andean time capsule, a living testament to resilience, adaptation, and the enduring spirit of the highlands. Welcome to the ascent. Let the journey begin. Our ascent begins in Quito's beating heart, the historic center, a living colonial masterpiece where Spanish grandeur was laid atop ancient indigenous foundations, forging one of the richest cultural tapestries in the Americas. In 1534, Spanish conquistador Sebastián de Benalcázar claimed this highland valley for the crown, building the new city upon the ruins of an Inca settlement that had replaced earlier indigenous towns. Quito's founding as a Spanish municipality marked the beginning of a new era, yet layers of history still pulse beneath every stone. Centuries before the arrival of Europeans, the high valleys of the northern Andes were home to the Quito, a pre-Columbian people whose presence here stretches back over a millennium. Archaeological evidence places Quito occupation of the Quito Plateau well before the Inca expansion of the late 15th century. These highland farmers shaped the land with terraced slopes, cultivated maize, and revered the sun and mountain spirits long before the Incas arrived. By the middle of the 1400s, the Inca Empire under leaders such as Pachacuti and his son Huayna Capac brought the highlands into the sprawling kingdom of Tawantinsuyu. The Incas introduced administrative innovations, from the knotted record-keeping system known as quipus to the organized labor tax called mita, reshaping the social and economic rhythms of life in the region. The northern highland stronghold that would become Quito became an important outpost in the empire, linking Andean cultures across vast mountain distances. Today, as you wander Quito's cobblestones, the city's centuries of cultural blending seem to converge on streets like La Ronda. Once a quiet thoroughfare, this narrow, lantern-lit lane has been reborn as an artisan hub, where workshops and galleries come alive with local crafts, music, and flavors of the Andes. Beneath colonial balconies, cafes serve canelazo, a warm, spiced cinnamon drink that thaws the high-altitude chill, a taste of tradition as vibrant as the street itself. Step inside La Compañía de Jesús, the Jesuit church begun in 1605 and completed over a century later, a centerpiece of Quito's historic core. Its interior is a breathtaking Baroque jewel, a symphony of gold leaf, volcanic stone carvings, and ornamental detail, where European forms and Andean motifs intertwine to create one of the most remarkable ecclesiastical spaces in the New World. Just steps away, the San Francisco Convent sprawls across an entire city block. As the oldest and largest religious complex in South America's colonial landscapes, its compound of cloisters, chapels, and museum galleries has served as a spiritual and cultural anchor since construction began shortly after Quito's Spanish founding. Its Plaza de San Francisco, once fed by the city's central fountain, has been a meeting place for traders, worshippers, and revolutionaries through generations. Ascending still higher above Quito's tiled rooftops brings you to El Panecillo, a volcanic hill whose very name, Little Bread Roll, nods to its rounded shape and commanding view. Atop this peak stands the Soaring Virgin of Quito, a 41-meter aluminum monument erected in 1975 to 1976, remarkable not only for its scale, but also for its unique form. A winged Madonna standing upon a globe, trampling a serpent in classic iconography drawn from the Book of Revelation. Long before this modern guardian was placed there, El Panecillo, known in indigenous tradition as Yavarak, was itself sacred ground. Pre-Hispanic worship at the summit included temples dedicated to the sun, part of a spiritual geography that revered mountain peaks as bridges between the earthly and the divine. Evidence suggests that these sacred landscapes helped shape Quito's cosmological identity well before European contact. In Quito's historic center, every plaza and facade reflects centuries of adaptation and synthesis, from pre-Inca sacred rites to Incan administration, from Spanish Baroque ambition to the multicultural heartbeat of modern Ecuador. Each step through these streets is a chapter in a story still unfolding, rich, layered, and indelibly human. But Quito's soul ascends even higher, not merely through its sacred plazas, but into the bustling arenas where ancient crafts endure and thrive, carried forward by hands that trace their lineage to the heights of the Andes. 2 hours north, above shimmering lakes and beneath the watchful crowns of volcanoes, lies Otavalo, perched at 2,935 meters above sea level. Here unfolds South America's largest indigenous market, a high-altitude bazaar that explodes with color, sound, and ancestral presence each Saturday. In the Plaza de los Ponchos and spilling far beyond it, artisans from villages across the Imbabura province gather to sell their wares, textiles, jewelry, and objects of deep meaning woven into the fabric of Quechua identity. In the highland sun, Quechua Otavaleños descendants of peoples incorporated into the Inca realm centuries ago, unfurl blankets and ponchos hand-woven on backstrap and pedal looms, techniques passed down through generations. These are not mere commodities, they are living narratives etched in threads. Ponchos crafted from alpaca wool shimmer in deep crimson and twilight blues, their geometric patterns echoing Andean cosmology, while embroidered blouses bloom with flora that honors Pachamama, the Earth Mother. Alongside them lie silver and beaded jewelry, carved gourds, and musical instruments born of native wood and metal, each piece an expression of heritage and resilience. Closer to Quito, in the La Mariscal artisan market, the pulse of the Andes continues. Stalls here overflow with treasures that mirror Otavalos, wood carvings of Andean condors, pottery glazed with volcanic ash and tagua nut, vegetable ivory, figurines and jewelry. Harvested from the seeds of the Phytelephus palm, tagua is prized for its sustainable, ivory-like quality, carved and dyed into ornamental pieces that reflect both ancient craft and contemporary creativity. These artifacts are not souvenirs to be admired and forgotten. They are lifelines, economic, cultural, spiritual. For many Quechua artisans, selling their crafts sustains families and communities while honoring the wisdom of their ancestors. Each textile dyed with cochineal or indigo, each hammered piece of metal adorned with sun motifs, carries a lineage of knowledge that predates the Spanish conquest. Deeper into this narrative are the artisans themselves, the descendants of the Incas and the original peoples of the northern Andes. The Quechua of Ecuador, part of the larger Quechua peoples of the Andes, speak Quechua dialects rooted in the language of the Inca Empire and its precursors. However varied their dialects and traditions, these communities retain a shared bond through craft, land, and ceremony. In villages around Otavalo and Quito, time-honored practices endure. Families gather to spin and dye wool with natural pigments, the intense reds of cochineal insects, the deep blues of indigo, before stretching threads across looms that trace back to pre-Columbian techniques. These patterns do more than clothe the body. They encode stories of mountains, spirits, and migration. Women like those in cooperatives, where generational skills are honored and taught, weave with intention. Their designs are narratives, creation stories, ecological knowledge, seasonal cycles, and historical memory intertwined. Elders, guardians of tradition, pass down more than patterns. They teach the rhythms of the earth, the metaphors of landscape, and the spiritual resonance of every symbol. Whether shaping pottery in earthen kilns or hammering recycled silver into discs etched with solar designs, these artisans bridge epochs. In the suburbs of Quito, Quechua families negotiate the balance between tradition and modernity. They sell crafts online to distant patrons while teaching youth ancient songs and rituals tied to the agricultural calendar. Harvest festivals where the cycle of sowing and reaping is consecrated through dance, chant, and shared celebration. In these moments, the Andes are not backdrop. They are protagonist, a living presence in the story of a people who continue to shape their legacy with every woven thread. Yet, Quito's time capsules hold enigmas that challenge even seasoned explorers. Beneath the polished colonial facades, ancient foundations of pre-Hispanic Quito lie buried just beneath the surface, revealing that the city we see today was built upon landscapes long shaped by indigenous hands. Archaeologists have identified sites such as Rumipamba, an open-air archaeological park on the flanks of the Pichincha volcano, where stone walls and remnants of houses tell stories of the earliest occupants of the region long before the arrival of the Spanish. Nearby, the Banon La Florida site, now a museum tucked into the urban grid, contains deep burial tombs and artifacts dating to pre-Inca periods, reminding us that Quito's underbelly still holds chapters of its earliest past. Across the Andes, whispers of lost artistry echo in family heirlooms and private collections. Rare Otavalo weavings adorned with Inca calendar symbols, intricate patterns that mirror cosmological knowledge and agricultural rhythms, are jealously guarded by families whose ancestors preserved these motifs through centuries of change. Each thread maps celestial cycles, mythologies of creation, and coded mnemonic systems that harken back to pre-Hispanic worldviews. While not publicly cataloged, those who study Andean textiles recognize such pieces as invaluable links to epistemologies seldom seen in museums but living in the continuity of craft. Beyond the city, the volcanoes themselves conceal clues. Though formal archaeological surveys on Pichincha's slopes are less documented than at sites like Rumipamba, the highlands around Quito are speckled with pre-Hispanic trails, stone platforms, and alignments likely related to solar observation and ritual activity, reflecting a deep tradition of mountain reverence in Andean cultures. These buried truths do not remain confined to textbooks or excavation reports. They live in the voices of contemporary Quechua activists and community leaders who reclaim urban and rural lands for traditional farming practices, despite Quito's rapid expansion. In the rich soils at the city's margins and amid encroaching development, these stewards of ancestral land use systems grow quinoa, potatoes, and other Andean staples using Ayalu principles of communal cooperation, embodying an indigenous worldview of reciprocity with the earth and each other. Context integrated from broader knowledge of Andean Ayalu systems. The narrative reaches its dramatic peak at dawn on June 21st, when the Inti Raymi, the ancient festival of the sun, unfolds across the high Andes, including near Quilotoa, a volcanic crater lake 2 hours southwest of Quito that rests at approximately 3,914 meters above Quito's sea level. Here, at the quiet edge of the Quilotoa caldera, ancestral rhythms rise with the sun. In the modern Andes, this festival, once central to the Inca agricultural calendar and the worship of Inti, the sun deity, now unites Quechua communities around gratitude, renewal, and harvest. At the rim of the Emerald Crater, gathering crowds clad in embroidered ponchos, feathered hats, and symbolic regalia prepare for ceremonies that echo ancient practices. Ritual purification is central. Participants engage in arme chisi, ceremonial baths in lakes, rivers, or springs at dawn, believed to cleanse body and spirit and renew bonds with nature's forces. Drums beat a steady cadence as dancers form circles, their movements mimicking the sun's cosmic course. Traditional melodies, often played on flutes, guitars, and local percussion, carry Quechua chants of thanksgiving and invocation, while aromas of Palo Santo incense rise in smoke, carrying prayers for fertility and renewal to unseen apus, mountain spirits that watch over the valleys and peaks. Feasting follows these sacred rites. Tables spread with roasted cuy, guinea pig, hearty potato stews, and shared bowls of chicha are communal expressions of abundance earned through collective labor and reverence for the earth. Within these living traditions, where Inca solar calendars once guided planting and harvesting, modern Quechua life blends seamlessly with Catholic and regional customs, illustrating a cultural resilience that survived conquest and centuries of transformation. As the sun crests the Quilotoa crater and ignites the Andean horizon, one can feel it, an unbroken bridge between ancient rhythms and hearts that still beat to the pulse of the sun. Today, Quito's rebirth endures in ways both tangible and profound. Urban renewal here is not merely about restoring architecture, it is about integrating indigenous voices into the social and cultural fabric of the city, giving space for heritage, education, and community expression to flourish amidst modernization. Community spaces and cultural centers celebrate indigenous history and artistic expression, preserving traditions while fostering local participation in urban life. Organizations and programs focused on cultural preservation and youth empowerment work alongside municipal efforts to make the city's evolution inclusive and equitable. Markets, from La Mariscal's artisan alleys to Otavalo's expansive plazas, now serve as more than economic hubs. They fund community schools, cooperative enterprises, and cultural initiatives, allowing indigenous artisans to reinvest in the future while sustaining traditions that stretch back centuries. Through these markets, the rhythms of ancient craftsmanship help shape educational opportunities, social cohesion, and cultural continuity. Yet, threats loom large across the high Andes. Climate change erodes high-altitude farming systems, forcing growers to adapt ancestral crops to rising temperatures, shifting precipitation patterns, and diminishing water security. Pressures felt from rural villages to the slopes surrounding Quito itself. Urbanization also pressures the landscapes that once cradled sacred trails and ancient agricultural terraces, blurring the boundaries between cultural heritage and expanding city grids. In the face of these challenges, Quechua resilience shines with renewed intensity. Cooperatives export crafts to global markets, infusing traditional weaving and carving with economic vitality. Sustainable tourism initiatives around sites like Quilotoa seek to balance environmental protection with community prosperity, encouraging visitors to engage respectfully with both natural wonders and ancestral knowledge. Ceremonies drawing eco-tourists to solstice rites, mountain pilgrimages, and ritual gatherings help sustain traditions while cultivating awareness of indigenous cosmologies and ecological stewardship. As mist veils Quilotoa's jade-green crater lake at dawn, Quito's time capsules remind us that history isn't buried. It lives, breathes, and ascends with each solstice sunrise. These are not static relics, but living legacies, rituals enacted on volcanic rims, songs carried in highland winds, and crafts woven with wisdom passed through generations. Ascend these streets, weave these tales, join the ceremony. The Andes call you not merely to witness history, but to inhabit it. Thank you for joining this Andean ascent. Subscribe for more cultural odysseys. Until next time, let the sun guide you.